This overseas assignment is confidential and highly classified. You could be gone for years with no way to contact your family. Are you sure your wife knows about this? If she comes looking for you, our non-disclosure agreement means we can't tell her a thing about your whereabouts. I'm sure. Julian took the documents from the official. Seeing the hesitation in the man's eyes, he offered a bit of reassurance. My wife and I are getting a divorce. In 10 days, I'll be ready to leave on schedule. That non-disclosure was exactly what he wanted. He wanted Stella to never be able to find him again. Not far off, 2 employees walking by overheard and looked like they just heard the most earth-shattering gossip. Did I hear that right? Did Mr. Vance just say he's divorcing his wife? Isn't Stella known all over the city for being hopelessly devoted to him? Would she actually agree to that? I know, right? I still remember that proposal ceremony that went viral everywhere. And when Julian had that accident, the hospital had barely announced he might not make it before Stella slit her wrists, ready to die with him. If her assistant hadn't found her in time, they'd both be dead. I'd sooner believe my own ears are broken than believe they're getting a divorce. Julian had heard things like this more times than he could count. Everyone thought Stella was madly in love with him. If Julian hadn't received those videos, he too would have gone to his grave believing in Stella's devotion. But reality is always crueler than you imagine. 6 months ago, he received an anonymous email. There, in over 200 sex tapes, was Stella, the woman who, to the outside world, was crazy about her husband, going at it with Julian's own younger brother, who had only been found and brought back into the family 3 years ago. On the bed, in the car, on the dining table, and even on the bay window of Julian's own marital bedroom, they tried nearly 100 different positions, exploring each other in every way imaginable, never tiring of it. When he first saw the videos, Julian tried to believe in her. But then he sent them to the top forensics team in the country, and they came back with their conclusion. Our analysis confirms the video and audio show no signs of digital alteration. Julian's heart seized. Something inside his chest shattered into a million pieces. He even stormed into her office in a blind rage, ready to demand why she would do this to him. But through the frosted glass door, he saw Stella with William on her lap, their clothes in disarray, their movements frantic. In the heat of passion, she dug her nails into William's waist, her eyes burning with lust, her voice hoarse. William, as long as you stay by my side, I'll give you anything you want in this life, anything except my husband's title. Julian stood frozen at the door, biting his lower lip until it was a bloody mess. When the sounds inside finally stopped, his heart went completely still. That day, he threw the wedding ring he had personally designed into a trash can, along with the last shred of his hope, and walked away without a backward glance. On the day he married Stella, he had told her he would never accept something that someone else had used. If she ever dared to betray him, he would disappear from her world without a second thought. Julian calmed himself, put the documents away, and went back to his apartment. As soon as he walked in, he saw Stella in her loungewear, tidying up the place. She was clearly surprised to see him, but then she rushed forward and threw her arms around him, her voice full of grievance. Where have you been? I took the earliest flight back and you were gone. Do you have any idea how much I missed you? She greedily drank in his scent. But Julian immediately smelled the unfamiliar scent of men's cologne on her. And the scarf around her neck, it was new. Did you buy this yourself? Stella used to be incredibly possessive. She only ever wanted accessories that he bought for her, and she insisted that every piece had to match something in his closet. She said it was so that the moment they stepped out, everyone would know they were a loving couple. But now, she gently took the hand Julian was reaching toward her scarf. I did. I never realized how much trouble it was to pick things out myself. I don't want my precious husband to get tired, so from now on, I'll just handle these things myself. Her gaze was as tender as ever, but Julian's eyes were uncontrollably drawn to the faint red marks peeking out from under her scarf. His heart bled. So, you bought it last night? His voice trembled. Stella was completely oblivious to his state. Of course not. Last night I was busy getting a gift for my darling husband. She mysteriously produced an elegant cufflink box from behind her back, her eyes as soft as a spring lake. The moment I saw these cufflinks, I knew they were a perfect match for you. Honey, our 5th anniversary is just around the corner. They say time fades everything, but I just love you so much. Liar. A bitter taste filled Julian's throat. He'd seen the receipt for these cufflinks 5 days ago, and she had just gotten back last night, after spending the entire evening in the room next door, rolling around in bed with William. The scarf and the hickeys were all from William, but she was still lying to him, telling him she loved him without even batting an eye. Julian dug his nails into his palms. Stella was already eagerly fastening the cufflinks to his shirt cuffs. They look perfect. She was immensely pleased and, out of habit, leaned in to kiss him on the lips. But Julian acted as if he didn't see, forcing back the sting in his eyes and taking a step back, silently rejecting her touch. I got you a gift too. I'll give it to you on our anniversary, along with your Christmas present. He tried his best to make his smile look natural. Stella wrapped him in a tender embrace, her eyes filled with love. Honey, you're so good to me. So good that I feel like I don't even deserve you. That's why you can never, ever leave me. Without you, I'd die. At such a close distance, Julian could clearly see the hickey on her neck. His eyelashes fluttered. She can't leave him? He looked deeply into her devoted face and smiled. 10 days left, Stella. I'm waiting to see you prove it. 9 days to go. Julian was woken up by Stella's kisses. She was as gentle as ever, her arms holding him carefully. But Julian shoved her away and rushed to the bathroom, where he threw up violently. Stella was terrified and hurried after him, rubbing his back to soothe him. Why are you so sick? Honey, are you feeling awful? It's all my fault. I can't believe I didn't notice anything. Her eyes turned red with worry. She grabbed her phone, ready to call her assistant, Ben, and postpone today's new product launch. Julian pressed her hand down and shook his head. I'm fine. He just felt disgusted. She could sleep with another man one night and then wrap her arms around him the next morning, whispering sweet nothings without a hint of shame. But he had his standards. He couldn't stand the thought of a mouth that had kissed someone else coming to kiss him. Stella was still worried. She insisted on taking him to the hospital and stayed by his side for every single test. But Julian knew her heart was elsewhere. It was on her phone, which she kept glancing down at. After seeing her bow her head to text for the umpteenth time, Julian glanced down and saw her screen. A transfer for $9,999. It was accompanied by a gentle, reassuring message. When they take pictures at the event later, I'll have someone bring you to stand behind me. You can secretly hold my hand, and we can pretend I'm there just for you. Okay? After sending the message, she looked up as if nothing had happened and twisted open a bottle of water for him. Honey, drink some more water. Her smile never faltered. Julian gripped the bottle, the cold plastic chilling his blood. After leaving the hospital, she was visibly anxious on the way to the product launch. She probably didn't even realize that she had dropped his hand the moment she got out of the car, rushing toward the venue. By the time Julian got out, she was almost at the entrance. Only at the last second did she seem to remember him, turning back with an apologetic smile. Sorry, honey. My assistant was rushing me, and I started walking too fast without thinking. Julian's hand, holding his phone, tightened. The winter wind stung his face, making his eyes dry. He almost couldn't stop the tears from falling. Reporters nearby were looking on with envy. Stella is so in love with her husband. I remember when they got married. She said she hoped the most important person in her life would be by her side for all its most important moments. It's been 5 years, and she's still living by that. Once, he might have been that most important person. But today, he wasn't, and he never would be again. Julian said nothing more, his vision blurring. The moment he walked in, he saw William in the back of the crowd. He was dressed in a custom-tailored suit that made him look tall and sharp. But what stood out the most were the cufflinks on his sleeves, which were almost identical to the ones on Julian's own wrists. William had clearly seen him too. As the crowd parted, he sauntered over to Julian, a wine glass in hand, and smiled. What a coincidence, brother-in-law. Did my sister get you this pair of cufflinks too? The light in the venue glinted off the cufflinks, a stabbing pain in Julian's heart. So even the gifts she gave him weren't exclusively his anymore. A lump formed in Julian's throat. Not wanting to torture himself further, he turned to leave. But William's expression suddenly changed, his bright eyes turning red in an instant. Are you angry, brother-in-law? I didn't mean anything by it. I just didn't expect her to give you the sapphire ones. She only got me the ruby pair because I thought this color was too tacky. If I had known you'd be wearing these today, I definitely wouldn't have tried to steal your thunder. Please don't be mad at me, okay? So they were the ones he had rejected. Julian's fingers clenched and unclenched repeatedly. Just as the pain in his heart became suffocating, he suddenly smiled. Well, since you put it that way, why don't you take them off? He said it bluntly, his eyes sweeping over William's suit. And that suit clashes with mine. Take that off too. William's face stiffened for a moment. He was about to say something, but then he saw someone and his attitude shifted. He raised his hand, his eyes red, and actually prepared to strip right there. If my brother-in-law says I shouldn't wear it, then I'll take it off. As long as he's happy, I'll do whatever it takes. But after a whole show of fumbling, the cufflinks remained on his sleeves. Julian watched his act with cold eyes until he'd had enough, then stepped forward and did it himself. With a sharp tug, the cufflink chain snapped. William, however, acted startled. Ow, that hurts! He cried out dramatically, clutching his wrist as his eyes instantly welled up. Stella heard the commotion and rushed over. When she saw the scene, her face immediately darkened. Which one of you blind fools did this? The room fell silent for a moment. Julian just stared at her without a word. The still warm cufflinks in his hand felt like tiny needles, tormenting his heart and making him spasm with pain. When no one answered, Stella's expression grew even uglier. I'll ask one more time. Who did it? Julian remained silent, his grip on the cufflinks tightening, his palm turning red in an instant. William, however, felt emboldened. He stepped forward, clutching the wrist he'd scratched with his own fingernails, and started crying pitifully. Stella, it hurts so much. He angled his wrist just right to show off the wound, his body nearly collapsing into her arms. But Stella took a step back and glared at him coldly. Did you start this? What? William froze. Stella looked down at him, her tone icy. I'm asking you, did you do something to upset my husband? William's face went pale. It was clearly him. Apologize. Stella's patience had run out. Her cold command pinned William to the spot. He stared at her wide-eyed. Me? Apologize? Why? What other choice is there? She looked at him coolly. No one gets to bully my husband. You made him unhappy, so naturally, you're the one who should apologize. Her voice was just loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. It was as if, in that moment, she truly loved Julian more than anything. Julian's eyes stung so badly he thought they might burst. The whispers and pointed looks from the crowd reached William's ears. Within moments, he couldn't take it anymore, and tears streamed down his face. Yes, it was me. It was all me. It was my fault for wearing the suit you gave me out of pity, and for wearing those cufflinks. I was being thoughtless and upset my brother-in-law. It's all my fault. I'm sorry for upsetting the man you love. I apologize. I should just die. Are you happy now, Stella? He tremblingly ripped off his jacket, threw it on the floor, and pushed his way through the crowd. Stella's expression didn't change. She smiled, took Julian's hand, and soothed him gently. Don't be upset, honey. I'm here. I won't let anyone bully you. She said it with such sincerity. If only the hand hanging by her side wasn't clenched into a tight fist. If only the smile on her lips looked a little more natural, a little less forced. If only he didn't know her so well. As expected, the incident at the product launch was all over the news. Once the video leaked, Julian and Stella's names were at the top of the entertainment headlines for a full day. The online comments were a unanimous chorus of envy, calling her the best wife in the world. Julian just glanced coolly at the woman who had gone straight to the shower after coming home half an hour ago. On the shirt she'd thrown in the laundry hamper, there was a noticeable wet spot. She had brought that back with her from outside half an hour ago. At the same time, William posted a picture on his social feed of a new pair of designer diamond cufflinks and a custom-tailored suit. The third picture was of him lying in a woman's arms. The caption was just as provocative and stinging. "Since you tried so hard to please me tonight, both in and out of bed, I'll reluctantly forgive you. What can I say? I love you more than anyone. You have to keep your promise and spoil me forever. Okay?" Julian stared, lost in thought. Just as tears welled in his eyes, a soft, warm hand unexpectedly rested on his head. "What are you looking at, honey?" Julian didn't turn around. He wiped away a tear with his fingertip and casually tapped on the picture to show her. In the photo, the hand holding the gift box was clearly the same one now resting on his head. A flash of unease crossed Stella's face. But it was only for a second. She gently hugged him again, resting her head on his shoulder. "That style isn't very nice. It doesn't suit you. I'll take you to the boutique tomorrow to pick something out. I'll buy you as many as you want. Whatever others have, my husband has to have too." She was still lying to him. Did she really think he wouldn't recognize the hand he had held for 7 years? Julian's heart ached until he could barely breathe. In the end, he just shook his head bitterly. "No, thank you." He pushed her away and curled up under the covers. "Let's just go to sleep." In a little while, they would have nothing to do with each other anyway. He just wondered if, on the day he truly disappeared from her world, she would feel even a flicker of regret for her betrayal, perhaps feeling guilty for hurting William at the product launch. Stella started to frequently slip out in the middle of the night after Julian fell asleep, always returning just before dawn. She thought her actions were seamless, but she forgot that things like security cameras exist. One day, Julian woke up earlier than usual. As he left his room, he ran right into Stella, who was just coming in, dew dampened from the morning air. "Honey, why are you up so early today?" She pretended she had just gotten back from working late. Julian glanced at the new clothes she was wearing and the fresh, tiny hickeys on her neck, silently telling himself over and over, "Don't ask. Don't think about it. Just a few more days. Get through these few days and it will all be over." Once he calmed down, he showed not a single shred of concern. All he offered was a flat, "Yeah." Seeing him like this, a strange unease stirred in Stella's heart. In the past, whenever she worked late, he would frown with worry. "Honey, is something wrong?" Her brow furrowed. Julian didn't hide it. "My stomach's been acting up lately. I'm trying to get it sorted out. I have a doctor's appointment this morning for a checkup." That much was true. Stella instantly went into high alert. "Why didn't you tell me you were feeling unwell? You go get ready. I'll go with you in a bit." She started to head upstairs to change but was interrupted by a phone call. With just one glance, Julian saw the name William on the screen. Stella hung up without a second thought. But the phone immediately rang again.
Enormt, Stella answered. Her tone unusually sharp.
"My husband is sick. You'd better have a good reason for calling." The person on the other end said something that made Stella's expression shift. She gave Julian an apologetic smile and stepped aside to take the call. Julian counted silently in his head. On the 7th second, Stella hung up and walked back over, a look of helplessness in her eyes. Something came up at the office. "Honey, I can't go to the hospital with you. I'll have Ben go with you instead." Julian listened quietly, his eyes fixed on her. Stella was taken aback. "What is it?" She touched her face. "Do I have something on my face?" "It's not just your face that's dirty." Julian just felt that the young woman who had promised him a lifetime of love had become someone he no longer recognized. He had never doubted her sincerity, but he had forgotten that sincerity can change in an instant. "You should go." His tone was still flat. Stella keenly sensed his unusual behavior. She was about to say something when another message from William popped up on her phone. "I'm waiting for you, Stella. Don't be late." In the end, she said nothing more, grabbed her coat, and headed downstairs without a backward glance. At the same time, Julian opened his phone and pulled up the security footage. The screen showed the recording of Stella's phone call just moments ago. The second she was out of his sight, she had video called William. At first, her face was full of impatience. "I warned you this morning to back off. Don't try to drive a wedge between my husband and me, and don't call me when I'm with him. If I want to see you, I'll text you. Do you not understand?" "I didn't." William looked at the camera with a pitiful expression. "I know you love your husband, you don't have to keep reminding me. I'm a person, too. I have feelings. I get hurt. I just wanted to be the first to share my happy news with you." He pulled the phone back, revealing a small boy playing in the background. Julian's heart clenched as he saw William place a hand on the boy's head. "Stella, Leo called me Dad. He's my son with my ex-girlfriend. She doesn't want him anymore. If you're worried your husband will find out, I can send him away. I won't make things difficult for you." No wonder she had left in such a hurry. So they even had a child together. Julian looked up bitterly, his heart so pained it had gone numb. That morning, he went to the hospital by himself. After a series of tests, he received an email from a surrogacy agency. He was so stunned he didn't even react at first. He opened the email. It contained an ultrasound confirmation and a recording of a fetal heartbeat. The doctor, thinking he was overcome with joy, sent a voice message congratulating him. "Congratulations, Mr. Vance. The surrogate is confirmed to be 1 month pregnant. Everything is going smoothly." He had learned about his own child's successful conception at the exact moment William had shown up with his. Julian clutched his phone, an indescribable bitterness welling up in his chest, pressing down on his heart until it ached. Life really had a twisted sense of humor. The child he had longed for 5 years had to arrive just as he was about to leave. Julian felt so helpless he couldn't even cry. Outside the window, the bare branches of a tree swayed in the wind. He found Stella's contact information, his finger hovering, his heart wavering. As he stepped out of the doctor's office, a sweet, masculine voice chimed in. "Did you hear that, Stella? The doctor just said our baby is very healthy." It was William. He was holding the hand of the boy, Leo, his entire being radiating the joy of new fatherhood. Stella was standing right in front of him. She was tall and, as a CEO, had long forgotten how to bow her head to anyone but Julian. But now, she was bent over, her large hand gently stroking the child's head, her smile so tender. "Take good care of him. This is my first child. When he grows up, I'll bring him home, give him all my love, and raise him myself." She planned to keep the child, to raise him personally. Of course, Stella loved children. She had started planning a nursery in their 2nd year of marriage. An atheist, she had covered their home in posters of cherubic babies. She had always dreamed of having a beautiful child. It was just that, at first, the child Stella had dreamed of was with him, their child. Julian watched for a long time, so long that his eyes grew dry and his feet began to go numb. He let out a self-deprecating laugh, deleted the ultrasound and the email from his phone, and immediately called the head of the surrogacy agency back. "Hello, I need to terminate my contract." That night, Stella didn't come home until the middle of the night. She had been texting Julian updates since noon. In the end, he hadn't replied to a single one of her 18 messages. After returning from the hospital, he had locked himself in his room and watched movies. Right now, the film was at the part where the male lead gets diagnosed with a terminal illness, only to come home and find his beloved wife and his best friend in his marital bed. The actor on screen portrayed the agony of betrayal to perfection. "You promised you would love me forever, that you would be good to me. That's why I agreed to marry you. How could you betray me?" Caught in the act, the wife's first reaction was to pull up the covers to shield her lover. Julian was so affected by the scene that he bit his lip until it bled. Suddenly, the room's light switched on. The next moment, the cheating wife on the screen was replaced by Stella's face. Some women just don't know what's good for them. They have such a wonderful husband and don't cherish him. When she ends up with no husband and no kids, she'll learn to regret it. "Why are you getting so worked up?" But Julian kept his eyes fixed on the woman on the screen, a bitter smile on his face. Are all women like this? No matter how much they love someone, after a while, do they all forget what it was like to be deeply in love and can't resist straying? Stella's body stiffened. She sighed, took his hand, and frowned disapprovingly. Do you think I would do that? Honey, we promised when we got married that we would walk this life hand in hand. I will never betray you. Never. The lies rolled off her tongue so easily. Julian lowered his head as a tear slid silently down his cheek. I also said that if you ever betrayed me, I would make sure you never saw me again for the rest of your life. That won't happen. This time she didn't hesitate. I will never let you leave me. Honey, I would go crazy without you. So you must never let me lose you. Perhaps because of their conversation before bed, Stella's sleep was restless. She held onto Julian's hand, calling out honey in her sleep. He watched her for as long as she called for him. If you're so afraid of me leaving, why couldn't you control yourself? Why did you have to betray me? You say such beautiful words, but your actions are so ugly. Julian let out a scornful laugh. In the dark of the night, after his tears had dried, he calmly pulled his hand from her grasp, took his pillow, and moved to another room. That night, he dreamed over and over of the young Stella who had been so deeply in love with him. The Stella who, when he had a fever and mentioned wanting strawberries, would drive from the south side of the city to the north in the middle of the night to find them for him. The Stella who, when he was on the brink of death after a car accident, would kneel outside the operating room and pray until her forehead was bruised and bloody. The Stella who, upon hearing a doctor say he might not make it through the night, was so afraid he would be alone that she resolutely slit her wrists, wanting to go to the other side and wait for him. But dreams always end, and her devotion was no longer his alone. The next morning, Julian opened his door and saw William greeting Stella with a radiant smile. As they passed each other, William's fingers deliberately and sensuously brushed against her palm. In an instant, the face of the woman from his dreams, the one who loved him so deeply, changed. She pulled William into a tight hug. Who was the woman that dropped you off? Their breaths mingled, their bodies pressed close. No one noticed Julian standing on the second-floor landing, watching everything clearly. Stella's eyes were cold. William, however, just smiled more brightly. What? Are you jealous? He playfully tapped her lips. Seeing her face darken, he leaned in to appease her, planting a kiss on her lips. Oh, don't be mad. I didn't know her. I just caught a ride. Who knew the driver would be so pretty? Ah. Before he could finish, Stella, her eyes red with fury, had already dragged him around the corner. It was a move they had clearly practiced 1,000 times, natural and fluid. Stella roughly pushed him against the door, muttered a curse, and a flurry of urgent kisses followed. Julian watched with cold eyes as her kisses traveled from William's mouth down to his neck and chest. It didn't take long for William's voice to soften. Stella, be gentle, don't bite. I was wrong. I won't mess around anymore. Stella rested her head on his shoulder, catching her breath, and warned him fiercely, try to test me again, and I'll kill you. William wrapped his arms around her neck, his lips brushing against hers, and his smile grew even wider. What kind of kill? Like this? His hand moved downward, and Stella's expression changed. William, you've got some nerve. Soon, Julian heard William's pleas for mercy. The sounds of water, gasps, each more suggestive than the last. A window at the end of the hallway was cracked open. The chilly morning wind blew in, filling Julian's heart with desolation. He gripped the wooden railing so tightly his nails broke, drawing blood. He waited until they were finished. William emerged, his hair disheveled. He looked up and his eyes met Julian's. Seeing Julian, he acted completely natural. Good morning, brother-in-law. I'll have to borrow my sister for a bit today. She promised to show me around her company. Down the hall, the hand that had been about to reach for him froze, then guiltily retreated. A long moment later, Stella emerged from a back door. Honey, why are you up so early? Why don't you sleep in a little longer? She had changed into a fresh set of clothes. But the scent of their lovemaking was still palpable. The moment she got close, Julian almost gagged. Stella smiled and took his hand, still playing the role of a devoted wife. How long have you been standing here? Why are your hands so cold? It was impossible to tell if it was a test or genuine concern. Julian lowered his head to hide the emotion in his eyes, a bitter taste filling his throat. Not long. I just came out and saw William. Stella's tense body visibly relaxed. She was about to say more, but Julian had already turned away. You have to get to work, you should go. I'm going back to bed for a bit. He was afraid if she didn't leave, he would suffocate. Even more afraid that his pathetic tears would fall. Julian's repeated strange behavior left an unexplainable emptiness in Stella's heart. She felt something was wrong and followed him, trying to grab his hand, but the door closed mercilessly in her face. At the same time, a message from William popped up on her phone downstairs. It was a short, tantalizing line. I'm still hungry, Stella. I want more. Her eyes darkened. She glanced at the closed door and, after a moment's thought, dismissed all of Julian's odd behavior as him just being grumpy from waking up. She decisively went downstairs. Inside the room, Julian frantically scrubbed the hand Stella had just held, hot tears splashing onto his skin. On the desk, his phone was playing back a frame-by-frame video of Stella and William's tryst downstairs. The notification bar showed a new message from Stella. Honey, I just booked a room at your favorite hotel. On our anniversary, I promise to make it a night you'll never forget. After the video finished, Julian swallowed the bitterness in his throat, backed up the security footage, and sent a copy to an anonymous account. Once that was done, he slowly replied to her, I'll make it a night you'll never forget. 2. Look forward to it, Stella. After that day, Stella became incredibly busy. Before, she would at least put on a show, waiting for him to fall asleep before leaving. Now, she was so blatant about it that she just blamed it on company business. Her best friends were all covering for her. They all praised Stella as the perfect wife, saying how she worked herself to the bone day and night but still found time to plan their wedding anniversary. No one knew that while they were telling Julian to look forward to it, an unknown number was relentlessly sending him videos of Stella and William in various places and positions, with the boy, Leo, often making an appearance. It was true she was busy. Busy spending time with another man and a child who wasn't hers by blood.
Busy fulfilling her duties 2 her lower.
After watching the latest video, Julian turned off his phone without any expression. He didn't reply to anyone's messages. Today was the day he was scheduled to terminate the surrogacy contract. The child he had longed for 5 years was, in the end, not fated to be his. Stella hadn't come home last night. She was with her other lover and his child. And as for her and Julian's child, only he had ever known. He had learned of the baby's arrival alone, and now he was sending the baby away all by himself. He never expected to run into a chaotic scene at the hospital near the obstetrics building. A distraught man who had lost his child was having a mental breakdown, brandishing a knife and accusing everyone he saw of stealing his baby. Seeing the man swinging the knife and lunging toward the crowd, Julian subtly shifted his position, slowly moving toward the staircase. As he stepped onto the stairs, he took a deep breath, ready to run, but his hand was suddenly grabbed in a tight grip. He frowned and turned to see William's defiant face. What a coincidence, brother-in-law. Seeing you just now made me wonder about something. If we were both in danger at the same time, who do you think Stella would save? His intention was obvious. The crazed man had already noticed them and was charging in their direction. His eyes red, knife in hand. Julian had no interest in playing this pointless game. He struggled to break free from his grasp. But William's expression suddenly changed. While holding on to Julian, he cried out to someone behind him, Stella, save me. Save Leo.
I'm scared.
Only then did Julian realize Stella was there too. Of course, William only came to the hospital for the child's checkups or if there was a problem. Stella cared so much about him and the boy, of course she would be there. But while William was willing to put himself at risk, Julian was not. He had already decided to walk away, so why did they have to drag him into this? Hadn't he suffered enough? Julian struggled even harder. But William's hands were like clamps, holding him fast. His eyes were filled with terror, but his words were chillingly detached. What are you panicking for? Don't you have faith in your 7 years of love, brother-in-law? You're insane. The man was just a few steps away. Stella was running against the flow of the crowd, pushing her way toward them. She was so frantic that the veins on her forehead bulged. She looked like she wished she could sprout wings and fly over. Julian's heart skipped a beat. So, who was all this panic and fear for? She had told him more than once that she wanted to grow old with him, that she could never live without him. What about a moment like this? Who would she choose? William. The answer came without hesitation. Stella fought her way over and, in that first instant, pulled William into her arms. She didn't even spare Julian a single glance. William let go of Julian. A triumphant smile curved his lips. But Julian, thrown off balance by the momentum, stumbled backward. His waist hit the railing, and he tumbled down the stairs. For a split second as he hit the ground, his mind went blank. Then, an unbearable pain shot through him, spreading from his limbs to every corner of his body. He could hear people screaming, running, someone subduing the mentally unstable man. Only Julian lay on the cold floor, warm blood trickling from his forehead. He looked up in despair at the woman silhouetted against the light. Once, her heart and eyes were filled with nothing but him. She couldn't bear to see him suffer even a little. Now, she was clutching another man, her hands trembling with fear. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. You and Leo will be fine. She repeated it over and over, soothing the trembling man in her arms, her eyes filled with the relief of a near miss. It wasn't until her gaze shifted downward. In the last second before he lost consciousness, Julian saw Stella running toward him like a madwoman. When he opened his eyes again, it felt like every bone in his body had been shattered and pieced back together. The slightest movement made him wince in pain. He stared blankly at the glaring white light overhead for a long time. I'm sorry. Stella had been sitting by his bed for who knows how long. Her eyes were bloodshot, and a weariness he hadn't seen in a long time had crept onto her face. She frowned in agony, her hands gripping Julian's tightly. Her voice so hoarse it was almost a whisper.
Honey, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't know you were there. How could I have not grabbed you? The light in her eyes had gone out. She was truly remorseful. Julian asked her only one question. When you ran over, did you see me? Stella fell silent. She tried to speak several times, but no sound came out. Julian didn't miss the trembling and panic in her eyes. He understood. She hadn't recognized him. In that moment, her heart and her eyes were filled with only William. He could recognize her from a single hand. But she was no longer the Stella who could spot him in a crowded sea of people. But why? They had been so in love. How had they come to this? Tears slid from the corners of his eyes, disappearing into the pillow. The harsh white light made his eyes burn, and his beating heart slowly sank into despair. Stella was still apologizing. The woman who once had a silver tongue could now only repeat the same few phrases over and over, yet they sounded more sincere than ever before. But it didn't matter anymore. His and Stella's futures were now two parallel lines that would never intersect again. From the moment she betrayed him, they had no future. But after that, Stella seemed to transform. She put all her work on hold and spent every waking moment with Julian, trying to cheer him up by taking him to different places every day. She would often wake from nightmares, terrified, only calming down after confirming he was still by her side, then holding him tight as she fell back asleep. She seemed to have reverted to the old Stella, the one who loved Julian more than life itself. But Julian knew better than anyone. No matter how much the 28-year-old Stella changed, the love she gave him would never be as pure as it was when she was 18. Stella might still love him, but it was on the condition that she couldn't let go of William either. The Stella who loved only Julian, with her whole heart, had vanished on that summer night when William first appeared. 2 days to go. Stella, as usual, was out with Julian. As if trying to reclaim something, she took him to all the places they had visited when they first started dating. At each spot, she would hug him and take a Polaroid picture. She said, "We'll come back to these places every year and take pictures. When we're old, we'll tell our children all about it and make them jealous of our love." As she said this, Julian was in the middle of tearing his half of a photo off, about to throw it in the trash. Her words made him pause. Stella gently took his hand, her gaze pleading and reverent. So, honey, we have to make it to that day together. We have to tell our love story to our children. You can't ever let go of my hand. Okay? After finding out about her cheating, Julian often found himself staring at her face, lost in thought. At first, he couldn't understand. How could she love him and, in the next breath, be having the time of her life in another man's bed? He still didn't understand. But now, watching her put away the phone she had just used to text William, he smiled. No, Stella, I don't want to grow old with you. I don't want to like you anymore. I don't want to be your husband anymore. After tomorrow, you can have William and your child and live your life with them. I just hope that after you see that security footage from the hospital, you'll still be able to accept him so readily. Stella's plea went unanswered. Julian threw all the torn photo fragments into the trash. Night fell, and the city lights began to glow. With Christmas approaching, the festive atmosphere on the streets was thick. After dinner at a restaurant, Stella stepped out to take a call. William had been calling her a lot today. Stella had been with Julian for days, and William, having been neglected for so long, was probably getting anxious. But he didn't need to be, because Julian was about to leave. Julian looked at the message on his phone. It had come from the officials a minute ago. Mr. Vance, your flight is confirmed for 9 a.m. tomorrow. We look forward to seeing you then. Julian had just replied, see you tomorrow, when he heard Stella's voice from behind him. What flight? Where are you flying tomorrow? Why didn't you tell me? Julian calmly exited the messaging app and turned to face her, his expression unruffled. It's nothing. A friend is going on a business trip tomorrow, and I wanted to ask him to bring something back for me. He was so calm that Stella saw nothing amiss and relaxed. Smiling, she produced a freshly bought flower balloon from behind her back and tied it to his wrist. It's crowded today. If you wear this, I won't lose you. She beamed at him. For a moment, Julian felt like he was seeing the Stella from their first date. That was also Christmas Eve. They had gotten separated in the square, and Stella had frantically searched for him, her eyes red with panic. When she finally found him, she bought a balloon and tied it to his wrist. She had said, this way, I'll be able to find you no matter where you go. The same day, the same person. But this time, all Julian wanted was to disappear from her world completely. After taking that call, Stella seemed a bit distracted. There's still some time before midnight. Where do you want to go, honey? I'll go with you. The winter wind was bitingly cold, but it was nothing compared to the chill he felt from the person beside him. Julian looked around and his gaze finally settled on a Ferris wheel in the distance. Let's go on that. Stella had confessed her love for him on a Ferris wheel. He thought it was fitting to end things where they began, a final period to their past. Around Christmas, there always seemed to be a lot of young couples riding the Ferris wheel. They all believed in the legend that if you kiss at the highest point, you'll stay together forever. Stella believed it too, so after buying the tickets, the smile never left her face. I calculated it, honey. By the time it's our turn, the wheel will reach the top right at midnight. Don't you think this is a sign from the heavens, confirming our love? We're destined to be together forever. As soon as she finished speaking, her phone started ringing. She ignored the first 3 calls, just glancing at the screen and hanging up. On the 4th call, just as she hung up, her phone was bombarded with a storm of text messages. Julian glanced over and saw the messages from William. You're abandoning me and the baby, aren't you? I'm giving you half an hour. If you're not here by then, I'm taking the baby and jumping. You can spend the rest of your life with your precious husband. The last message was a photo looking down from a tall building, a view so terrifying it made one's blood run cold. Stella's face changed instantly, her hand gripping the phone so tightly it turned white. Is someone looking for you? Julian reached out to smooth her wind-tousled hair, but Stella jerked her phone down, instinctively avoiding his gaze. When she realized his hand was just going for her hair, she froze, then forced an apologetic smile. I saw a bug, sorry. She bent down slightly, offering her head for him to fix her hair. But Julian took a step back, his hand never reaching for her again. You should go. So many calls, the person must be in a hurry. We don't have to ride the Ferris wheel. He looked at her calmly, as if he had no expectations of her at all. Stella finally realized that, at some point, things between them had changed. He hadn't thrown a tantrum or acted spoiled with her in a long time. He had become overly sensible, overly considerate, but his eyes were too calm, a calmness that made her heart race with panic. Her sixth sense told her she couldn't leave. Actually, it's fine if I don't go, but William's messages kept coming. He was counting down, a new number every minute, and then there were her best friends. The same people who used to greet him sweetly with Mr. Vance were now, one after another, trying to persuade Stella, "Are you really going to let him jump? Wouldn't that break your heart? It's a matter of life and death. You can see your husband anytime. William has a child with him." So everyone knew. All this time, he was the only one kept in the dark. Julian couldn't describe the feeling in his heart, only that the Christmas Eve wind was so cold. Seeing the color drain from Stella's face, just as they were about to get on the Ferris wheel, Julian suddenly turned and gave her a smile. "This ride takes 30 minutes. That's a long time, you know." Stella's expression changed dramatically. Just as the operator prompted them to board carefully, she seemed to snap back to reality and pulled Julian out of the line.
I'm sorry, honey.
It's fine. It was the outcome he had expected. After too many disappointments, the heart goes numb. Julian took a booklet and a pen from his bag. "Before you go, sign this for me. After you sign, there's a surprise." This was his last request for her. He had planned to do it on the Ferris wheel, but it seemed that wasn't going to happen. Stella was so distracted she didn't even look, just quickly signed her name on the signature line. Julian looked down and chuckled. "You didn't even read it. Aren't you afraid I just made you sign your life away?" But Stella didn't care at all. "If it's from you, I'd sign my life away in a heartbeat. It's a shame we couldn't ride the Ferris wheel today, but it's okay. We have plenty of time in the future. I'll take you whenever you want to go again." Julian pretended not to hear. He waited until she was far away, then took out the booklet she had signed and removed the cover. Inside was a complete divorce agreement. To make sure Stella wouldn't miss it, Julian placed her copy of the agreement in the most conspicuous spot on the dining table. He had packed up his belongings long ago, and most of them had already been shipped out. Now all that was left was a small suitcase. He called the officials to confirm his arrival time. Just as he was about to leave, he received a video call request from William. He accepted without hesitation and, as an afterthought, started a screen recording. On the screen was the woman he had just parted with, now standing breathlessly under a beam of light. Her hair was a mess, her forehead covered in sweat. She was bent over, hands on her knees, struggling to catch her breath, but her eyes were fixed on the camera. William's voice came from behind the lens. "Did you ever love me?" The sound was quickly lost in the wind, but Stella's eyes turned red. William seemed to be sitting somewhere high up. When Stella didn't answer, he scooted one step closer to the edge. "Whether I live or die today is all up to you. Stella, I'm asking you one last time. Do you love me? Does it matter?" The wind on the rooftop was fierce. Stella stepped into the shadows, half her face obscured. But William nodded stubbornly. "It matters. Yes, it does matter." For once, Julian agreed with William. No one wants to be with someone who doesn't love them. It hurts too much. It's exhausting. No one can keep loving someone who doesn't love them back. So, what's your answer? No matter how emotionally distraught William was, he never moved the phone away from Stella's face. Julian clearly saw her breathing become ragged, her hands by her sides clenching and unclenching. After what felt like an eternity, she let out a heavy sigh, as if in surrender. "You said you wanted to see me, and I dropped a multi-million-dollar contract and flew across the ocean for you. I didn't go to the office, I didn't see my husband, I came to see you first. You said you dreamed of marrying me, so the next day, behind my husband's back, I arranged a small wedding ceremony to fulfill your wish. 30 minutes ago, because of this ridiculous test of yours, I left my husband standing alone under a Ferris wheel. And now you have the nerve to ask if I love you? William, you are truly heartless. She laughed at herself. Julian laughed too, his eyes turning red. So, while she was busy professing her love for him, she had been doing all these things for William behind his back. William, on the other side of the screen, panicked. How did you know this was a test? Because we spend so much time together, and more importantly, because
Ikare.
Stella didn't say those last two words. But Julian, on the other end of the line, knew with perfect clarity. Because she cared, she understood. But you still came. William seemed genuinely moved. Stella's tone softened as she willingly placated him. Yes, I came. So, are you going to keep testing me? Or, no more tests? Before she could finish, William had already rushed into her arms.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'll never play these games again. You must be exhausted from running all the way here for me. I was wrong. I'll give you a massage tonight. Don't be mad at me, okay? I just love you so much. The phone dropped, landing with the camera pointed at them. Stella's eyes were still red. She undid William's collar with one hand and laughed wickedly. How tired I am, you'll find out for yourself in a bit. You're terrible. In the scuffle, the phone fell, the screen went black, but the sounds from the speaker became even clearer. Julian heard Stella gasp for William to be gentle. Then he heard his own name. Are you in a hurry to go back tonight? If your brother-in-law doesn't see you, will he get mad? The response was a light, breathy laugh from Stella. You think everyone is like you? Your brother-in-law is much more sensible. He'll just wait for me obediently at home, right where I can always find him. He loves me a lot. He won't get mad at me. What about me? You get me going more than he does. Ah, gentle. The video ended there. Julian sat on the sofa for a long time. Only when the sun began to rise did he move his numb hands, expressionlessly forwarding the screen recording, along with all the other evidence of Stella's cheating he had collected and the security footage he had copied from the hospital, to the programmer he had hired. On her wedding anniversary, Stella has arranged for reporters to be there. Once they're all present, project all the videos. The message had just been sent when he received one from Stella. Merry Christmas, honey. I hope you're happy and well this year. As for my Christmas gift and wishes, I'll come to collect them in person when I get back. A gift? Wishes? Julian laughed. Then, this Christmas, he would wish her a happy divorce. He would wish that she never finds true love again. He would wish that they never, ever see each other again. Stepping out into the Christmas morning sun, Julian threw away his old SIM card, hurried to the airport, and walked onto the plane that would carry him toward his future, without a single look back. It was a wild night. As dawn approached, Stella sat up in bed, rubbing her throbbing head. A warm body immediately pressed against her back. Don't you want to sleep a little longer? William clung to her, his hands already starting to roam. The next moment, Stella pushed him away. Our wedding anniversary is in a few days. You need to behave and not cause any more trouble for me. I don't have the energy to run back and forth between the two of you. She got up and dressed, making sure there were no obvious signs of her indiscretion, and turned to leave. But William, gritting his teeth, rushed in front of her, his heart filled with unwillingness. But I just want you to be with me, with our baby. I'm not asking for much. I won't fight with my brother-in-law for you. I just want a little of your time. His eyes were red, and he lowered his head, mastering the art of looking gentle and pitiful. Stella's resolve softened. When will you learn to be like your brother-in-law and stop being so clingy? But you like it, don't you? William looked up at her meekly, his posture utterly submissive. His slender fingers traced a path from her neck down to her chest. He opened his mouth to say more, but suddenly his body was lifted into the air. The world spun, and when he opened his eyes, he was pinned firmly to the bed by Stella. Don't tempt me. But William wouldn't give up. The moment she spoke, he tilted his head up to kiss her. He kissed her until her eyes were red with passion. His hands continued their teasing. Your anniversary is tomorrow anyway. Today is Christmas. Just spend it with me, okay? His fingers traced circles on her chest, his voice pleading. You and your brother-in-law have a whole lifetime ahead of you. You'll have plenty of time to be with him. The phrase "a lifetime ahead" made Stella's brow relax. Yes, she and Julian had a long future. It was okay. She would have plenty of time to be with him later. She let out a sigh of resignation. Just this once. With that, she got up and picked up her phone. The words to placate Julian came to her without thought. She opened her messaging app to text him, but suddenly noticed that the last message was the one she had sent. Julian hadn't replied to her in a long time. This had never happened before. That familiar unease surged in her chest again. No, I have to go back. Crash. Before she could finish, she turned to see William standing amidst a pile of broken glass. He looked terrified. The moment he moved, a shocking stream of red flowed from the sole of his foot, and his eyes immediately filled with tears. It hurts, he cried pitifully, standing frozen in place. Stella's train of thought was broken. She glanced at her phone screen one last time, sighed, and stepped forward to scoop him up, carrying him carefully to the bed. While she was tending to his wound, she managed to call her assistant. Ben, find some time today to buy a gift for my husband and give it to him. Just tell him I'm on a business trip and I'll be back before our anniversary. She had used this excuse many times over the past 6 months to stay with William. But for some reason, this time she felt uneasy. It was as if she was about to lose something important. The next day, before the sun was up, Stella was already awake and getting ready. William tried his usual tricks to make her stay. This time, his hand had barely touched her before she pushed it away with a frown. I can indulge you once or twice, but you need to know your limits. Today is my wedding anniversary with my husband. No matter how much I spoil you, you should know that you could never be more important than him. Stella said it bluntly. William's face went pale. He clenched his fists, a flash of hatred in his eyes, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by a blush and a pitiful look. That's not what I meant. I just wanted to hug you. But Stella acted as if she hadn't heard him. Your cologne is too strong. My husband will notice. With that, she finished getting dressed, grabbed her coat, and left with the sound of the closing door, never looking back. William's face fell completely. He coldly and deliberately walked to the closet and took out the custom suit Stella had given him. His fingers traced the sapphire on the lapel. His eyes filled with a sinister darkness. Not as important as him? Then I'll just have to ruin your wedding anniversary. The snow that started yesterday hadn't stopped by 9 this morning. Stella arrived at the restaurant, not even stopping for a sip of water before diving into rehearsals. At 10:20, the reporters and guests she had invited began to arrive. At 10:35, with 25 minutes until the event, her leading man had yet to appear. In fact, still no contact. No, ma'am. He's not answering his texts, and his phone is off. We've tried every method we can think of, but we just can't reach Mr. Vance. Stella's face was as dark as it could get. In their 5 years of marriage, this was the first time she had ever been unable to reach Julian. Stella stood by the window, staring down at the snow-covered street. The anxiety she had just managed to quell began to stir again. The scheduled time came and went, but Julian was still nowhere to be seen. A murmur went through the crowd. Everyone was guessing what might have happened, and some were even bold enough to ask Stella directly. Stella composed herself, reassured the guests, and then called her assistant over. Go to the house and get him. He hasn't been going out much lately. He probably stayed up too late watching movies last night and is still asleep. Hurry. Yes, ma'am. The assistant was already sweating bullets. In the restless crowd, no one noticed William standing in a corner, a smile of pure joy he couldn't suppress. It was better if he didn't come. A few more incidents like this and she would get tired of him. And what he wanted was for their relationship to crack so he could slip in. Another half-hour passed. Stella sat in a private room. With every minute that ticked by, her panic grew. Before, she could comfort herself with the thought that Julian had just overslept. But by now, he should have been awake. He was never one to have an irregular schedule. Her anxiety reached its peak. Stella couldn't sit still any longer. She grabbed her phone, ready to go find him herself. Just then, a video call popped up. It rang for less than a second before she answered without looking. "Honey, where are you?" "Why,
Me, Mom.
It was Ben, her assistant, and his voice was trembling. Not seeing the person she expected, Stella frowned. She saw Ben point the camera at a table. "Mr. Vance isn't home. I only found a divorce agreement signed by both of you."
Stella frose.
She could see the divorce agreement her assistant was talking about. As if afraid she wouldn't believe him, Ben specifically flipped to the signature page. There, stamped and signed, was her own name. But how was that possible? How could she have signed a divorce agree? Wait, under the Ferris wheel. She was about to leave, and then Julian called her back. It was that booklet. Stella's face went completely white. She couldn't understand how things had come to this. Today was their wedding anniversary. He was supposed to be waiting happily for her surprise. She couldn't believe Julian would divorce her. They were so in love. Her mind went blank. Stella grabbed her phone, about to rush out and find him. But then the large screen in the restaurant suddenly flickered to life, and the sound of a man's heavy breathing, mixed with a woman's soft moans, filled the room. "Stella, if my brother-in-law found out about this, what do you think he would do?" "Shut up. If you dare cause trouble in front of your brother-in-law, you can get the hell out." "Stella, do you love me? Aside from Mr. Vance's title, what haven't I given you?" The suggestive sounds continued one after another. Stella turned to see two familiar bodies intertwined on the screen. Every scene was so familiar. The crowd erupted. "What is this? Am I seeing things? Is she cheating? I thought Stella was famous for being devoted to her husband. Oh my God. I never would have guessed. Stella is into some kinky stuff. Huh? Isn't that guy her brother-in-law? She'd even stoop to that. And here I thought she was the perfect woman. You really can't judge a book by its cover. What are you waiting for? This is explosive news. Get the scoop now." With that, everyone swarmed forward. Some were already live streaming on their phones. The restaurant security couldn't stop them. William watched it all with cold eyes, then turned to give a satisfied smile to a nearby waiter. But the waiter's expression was off. He opened his mouth to say something, but William was already walking confidently towards Stella. But then, halfway through the explicit video, the scene on the screen abruptly changed to a hospital security camera feed. It was from the day of the incident at the hospital. William, thinking he had everything under control, had no idea that his every move and word had been recorded by a corner camera. On the screen, his malicious face was contorted in a hideous grimace. William stopped in his tracks. He turned to see the waiter he had paid, shaking his head in a panic. "I haven't even played the video you gave me yet. Did you hire someone else?" It wasn't him. Then who could it be? William's blood ran cold. He looked at Stella in terror. She was looking right back at him. She had clearly overheard his conversation with the waiter. Her eyes were as cold as if she were looking at an object. "No, that's not it, Stella. Listen to me. I apologize for taking up public resources." Before he could finish, the image on the screen changed again. This time, it was Julian's face. He was wearing a white shirt, just like the first time Stella had seen him, and he spoke slowly and gently. "As you can all see, my wife has betrayed me. She cheated on me with my own brother. I found out about this 6 months ago, when someone anonymously sent me the videos of my wife's affair that you just saw. The moment I realized I had been betrayed, I was devastated. So, after 6 long months of torment, I have decided to divorce her. Thank you all for your attention and well wishes over the years. I'm sorry this relationship didn't end the way everyone had hoped, but we all have to move forward. And to all the unmarried men out there, I want to offer a word of caution. Be very careful when choosing a partner. Finally, I wish everyone peace and happiness, except for Stella." The Julian in the video calmly and gently stated his position. That familiar detachment was the final blow that shattered Stella's defenses. So, for the past 6 months, her feeling that Julian was acting strangely wasn't just her imagination. So, he had been planning to leave her for half a year. He had already decided he didn't want her anymore, No, that's not possible. Julian wouldn't leave me. He wouldn't leave me. Stella completely broke down. She couldn't hear a word anyone was saying. All she wanted was to rush out and find Julian. William quickly grabbed her, completely terrified. Where are you going at a time like this? People are live streaming. You have to get them to shut it down, or we're finished. Things had spiraled completely out of his control. If this continued to spread, the public backlash would bury him alive. But the protection and comfort he expected never came. His heart sank. He cautiously looked up and saw Stella's eyes, impossibly cold and detached. From the day you caused Julian to fall down those stairs, you should have known there would be consequences. The coldness in her eyes sent a chill through William's heart. He wanted to say more, but the woman in front of him shoved him away. He sat on the floor in a daze, his fingertips cold. By the time he realized he needed to run, the reporters had already swarmed him. Microphones and faces blurred together as he screamed in panic. He yelled Stella's name over and over, but she walked away without a backward glance. The scandal was huge. The live broadcast of the event was playing on public screens and people's phones everywhere. Stella slammed on the gas, but she hadn't gotten far before her car was mobbed by reporters who had caught wind of the story. Her car was swallowed by the crowd, unable to move an inch. No matter how much she yelled, no one would let her through. The moment she rolled down her window, she was met with a wall of cold microphones and endless questions. Ms. Vance, is everything in the video true? Ms. Vance, was your loving wife persona just an act? Did you ever think about your husband at home when you were cheating with your brother-in-law? Ms. Vance, why did you betray your husband? Ms. Vance, please say something. Ms. Vance. Ms. Vance. One question after another. Stella's eyes were completely red. The frigid winter wind felt like it was tearing her heart apart. She wanted to ask why, too. Why did she betray Julian? Why hadn't she noticed all the signs he was acting strangely? Why did she lose him? Her mind was filled with the final video from the big screen. Julian's eyes had been so calm, so resolute. He really didn't want her anymore. But she couldn't live without Julian. Without Julian, she would die. Trapped in her car, Stella abandoned it and started running. All along the way, people pointed and stared, but she didn't dare to stop for a second. From day to night, she searched for him like a madwoman, but he was nowhere. The house was empty. She couldn't even find a single photo of them together. Half a month later, she managed to track down the official who had handled Julian's case. The moment she got the information, she rushed to the office building, waiting from 2 in the morning until the first employee arrived. Seeing the man, she grabbed onto him like a lifeline, her disheveled form lunging forward to grip his hand. You were the one who handled my husband's paperwork, right? I can't find his flight destination, but you must know, right? Tell me, just tell me, and I'll give you anything you want. Money, a car, a house, I can give you anything. The man was startled. The person in front of him had messy hair and bloodshot eyes, her suit disheveled. At first, he thought he had run into a crazy person. Then he recognized her. His expression instantly turned to disdain. Still calling him your husband? The man divorced you. Ms. Vance, you should probably stop using that term. He despised women who cheated. No wonder Mr. Vance had been so determined to leave the country. He must have been trying to get away from a woman like this. As for his location, even if he could tell her, which he couldn't do to the contract, he wouldn't. Not to someone like her. She had her fun when she was cheating. Now she regrets it? Too late. I don't know anything. Ms. Vance, you should leave. He meant what he said. For the next 7 days, Stella came back every day. But no matter how she begged, the official's answer was always the same. I don't know. Eventually, he even called the police, citing harassment. It was as if everyone was determined to keep her from finding Julian. But she knew she was wrong. She really knew she was wrong. After countless days and nights, Stella returned to the cold, empty house, now devoid of Julian's presence. She slumped onto the frigid floor, downing one bottle of alcohol after another. It was as if she was trying to say a lifetime's worth of apologies. As she finished the last bottle, She covered her eyes in agony. In her haze, she heard the doorbell ring. The sound was sharp and urgent. Stella instantly sobered up and scrambled toward the door. She stumbled countless times, her forehead hitting the shoe cabinet with a painful thud, but she didn't seem to notice. She flung the door open, terrified the person outside would disappear. "Julian, I knew you wouldn't." "Stella, you finally decided to see me." The early morning moon cast a cold light on the man at the door, who looked like a madman. The moment the door opened, he started to cry. "Stella, I texted you, I called you, but you never answered. Do you know the internet is full of people attacking me? They're all calling me a shameless homewrecker." He mimicked his previous pitiful act, crying as he tried to get closer to her. But the warm embrace he expected never came. A cold gust of wind made him shiver. William looked up and met a pair of eyes so cold they were terrifying. When she spoke, her voice was laced with ice. "And are you not?" The terror in her voice made William tremble, but he summoned his courage and stumbled forward to grab her. "Stella, what's wrong with you? Don't look at me like that. I'm scared." Stella let out a sneer, her eyes growing even colder. Her glare was so intense it was like she wanted to skin him alive. "You used a cheap trick to make me lose Julian, and now you have the audacity to tell me you're scared? If I could turn back time, I'd wish it was you who fell down those stairs that day." Her gaze was colder than winter snow. William couldn't bring himself to meet her eyes, but he wasn't willing to give up. He had worked so hard to get close to Stella, to get to where he was today. How could he just let it all go? With red-rimmed eyes, William tried to crawl forward and grab the hem of Stella's pants. "No, Stella, that's not it. Everything I did because I love you. I was afraid you would leave me, and I didn't know about my brother-in-law. I never thought he would fall down the stairs. Shut up." Stella slammed her fist against the door. "Do you really think I'd still believe you? Don't think I don't know who sent those videos to Julian. Get out of my sight. Don't ever let me see you again. Otherwise, I will make you pay." Not even the mention of their child could soften her. This time, William was truly panicked. "No, don't, Stella. You can't do this to me." He desperately tried to grab her, but before his hand could even touch her clothes, she flung him away. His body twisted, and he slammed his stomach hard against a stone pillar, a sharp pain making him gasp. "It hurts. It hurts so much." He clutched his stomach in agony, reaching a hand out toward her. The dim light of the entryway illuminated Stella's indifferent face. She looked down at him, not moving a single step. "So you feel pain too?" William flinched. He heard her cold sneer. "The day you set Julian and me up at the hospital, the day you caused him to fall down those stairs. Did you ever stop to think if he would be in pain after a fall like that?" "No, it wasn't like that." William frantically shook his head, trying to defend himself. Stella was already back inside. Before the door closed, her last words were cold and merciless. "You should be glad I can stop myself from killing you." "No, don't." William frantically fumbled for his phone, trying to call for help, but it was being spammed with calls from unknown numbers. He couldn't find a single moment to dial 911. In his panic, he accidentally answered one, and a sharp, mocking voice filled his ear. "You home-wrecking piece of trash. Aren't you ashamed? Why don't you just go die?" One call after another. William's hands trembled with pain, and the phone slipped from his grasp, clattering down the steps. Inside, Stella wasn't faring any better. She stumbled into the bathroom and soaked in a tub of cold water all night. In her delirium, she clung to one obsessive thought. Her husband had left her because she was unclean, so she had to wash herself clean. When her assistant found her in the bathroom the next day, she was burning up with fever, her body covered in red and purple patches from scrubbing, mumbling over and over, "I'm all clean now. Honey, will you come back? Please don't leave me." Ben sighed and called the family doctor. As he was about to leave, his hand was grabbed in a death grip. "Don't, honey. Please don't leave me. I'll really die without you." She held on with all her might, clearly mistaking her assistant for Julian. Ben felt helpless. If only she had known then what she knew now. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. At Portland General Hospital, a man in a white coat and a surgical mask stepped out of the building, stretched, and walked toward a woman leaning against a Bentley, the exhaustion clear in his eyes. The woman handed him a cup of warm water and casually ruffled his hair. It's almost New Year's again. Still not planning on going back? Nope. The man refused without a second thought. Twisting open the flask and taking off his mask, the handsome face revealed in the warm sunlight was none other than Julian's. He took a sip of water, gathered some strength, and then shot back with a smile. You've got some nerve asking me. What about you? Your family's been blowing up your phone. Does the great Mississippi Lane really plan on putting down roots here? At the mention of this, Vivian's face turned grim. Don't even start. The second I go back, my grandpa starts throwing men at me. He wants me to get off the plane one day and find a handsome guy in my room that night, hoping nature will take its course so I can get married the next day and give him a great-grandchild. I'd have to be insane to go back. Vivian shivered, clearly traumatized by past experiences. But you couldn't blame her. Her grandfather was indeed intimidating. Once, Vivian had video called him from the car. Julian, sitting in the passenger seat, had been on screen for all of 3 seconds before her grandpa had identified him as a potential target. That same afternoon, he somehow got Julian's phone number, called him up, and started interrogating him about his family history and his impression of his granddaughter, practically ready to marry them off on the spot. After just a few minutes of conversation, he was already talking about giving Julian a family heirloom. It had nearly scared him to death. Feeling a pang of sympathy for Vivian, he offered a suggestion. How about this? Find a husband here. Your grandpa's just afraid you won't get married and have kids, right? Just get married to show him, and your problem will be solved. Vivian was a real catch with a great family background to boot. In the 3 years he'd known her, Julian had seen plenty of handsome guys ask for her number. But Vivian just scratched her head and turned away with a huff. I'd love to, but would you be willing? What? She mumbled her words, and just then, a car horn blared nearby. Julian didn't catch a single word. Vivian shook her head vaguely, the ear facing the sun turning cherry red. Nothing. She cleared her throat and changed the subject. I heard a company from back home is looking to import some of the new drugs developed here. They're coming to negotiate the contract in a few days. The higher-ups specifically requested you as the translator. Looks like you're about to be busy again. Julian, halfway through a gulp of water, froze. He'd forgotten all about it. I almost forgot you mentioned that. The afternoon data isn't out yet. I asked Walt to pick them up from the airport for me. I wonder if he's met them. He pulled out his phone and called his colleague. The call was answered almost instantly. Before Julian could even speak, the person on the other end was practically shouting with excitement. Oh my God, this is the best gig ever. Julian, you have no idea how beautiful this CEO is. She's a bit cold, but man, she's gorgeous. And I think she's totally your type. His voice was so loud it was like he was on speakerphone. Julian heard every word and exchanged a look with Vivian. They were both equally exasperated. When are you going to rein in that fanboy side of yours? Don't knock it till you've seen her. I guarantee you'll like her. Walt was still gushing when he heard someone call his name. He quickly answered, then had to cut the call short with Julian. After hanging up, he turned and flashed a standard professional smile at the woman approaching him. Ms. Vance, if there's nothing else, I'll be heading out for now. My colleague will be assisting you tomorrow. If you have any questions, you can discuss them when you meet. The woman sat down on the sofa, not even looking up as she quickly scanned the documents her assistant handed her, signed her name, and moved on to the next. Walt inadvertently glanced at the name on the contract and was struck by her elegant, flowing signature. Then he saw her name, Stella Vance. Not long after Walt left, the assistant sighed as she watched her boss sign one contract after another. Ma'am, do you really think he would be in a place like this? Wouldn't a bigger city be more likely? You've invested in so many useless industries over the years just to find him. If this continues, Stella looked up from the contract she was signing, and a single glance was enough to silence her assistant. The word stopped, But the thoughts kept churning. It's been so many years. If he was going to be found, he would have been by now. Besides, he left so decisively. What makes her so confident she can just bring him back home once she finds him? The assistant couldn't finish her sigh. Meanwhile, after going over the workflow with Walt, Julian promptly added the client's contact information that he'd been sent. When he didn't get an acceptance after a while, he didn't just wait around. He got into Vivian's car and dove into preparing for the upcoming work. It wasn't until 4 p.m. that the other party finally accepted his friend request. It was just a simple acceptance with no message. Julian thought for a moment and sent a message. "Hello, Ms. Vance. I'm Andy, the translator for your meeting tomorrow. I just wanted to confirm our appointment for 9 a.m. at the Whiteland Hotel. Is that correct?" About 3 minutes later, a curt reply came back. "Yes." Julian paused, sensing she might be busy. He was about to end the chat when another message arrived. "My last name is Vance." The name he hadn't seen in 3 years suddenly appeared before his eyes. Julian flinched and quickly apologized. As he changed her contact name, typing out the name Vance, his heart still skipped a beat. That single beat led to a whole night of unease. It wasn't until he asked his supervisor and learned that the client was from a northern city that his heart finally settled. Stella was from the south, and her company had never been involved in the pharmaceutical industry. He let out a long sigh of relief and refocused on his work. But because of the afternoon's interruption, Julian was clearly not in the right headspace. He stared at the document for half an hour, making almost zero progress. When Vivian came downstairs, she found Julian clutching his stomach, slumped over the coffee table, and running his hands through his hair in frustration. She sighed silently and paused by the sofa. "Want some noodles?" Julian waved his hand dismissively. "It's okay, I'm having some anyway. I can make extra if you want." Vivian was already at the kitchen entrance, slowing her steps as she waited for him to change his mind. As expected, Julian did. "Well, thanks, Mississippi Lane. And an egg on top, please." He patted his face and threw himself back into his work. He didn't even notice that she only cooked 1 serving of noodles. Vivian even made sure to let the noodles cool to the perfect temperature before bringing them to the table, complete with a drink for Julian. Seeing only 1 bowl, Julian couldn't help but sigh. "Where's yours?" "Already ate." She lied without batting an eye. Julian didn't bother to call her out on it. The warm noodles settled in his stomach, finally easing the dull ache that had been bothering him all evening. Vivian stayed downstairs with Julian until he finished his noodles. With a full stomach, Julian faced the mountain of data on his computer, his mind now even blanker. "Well, looks like an all-nighter," he said with a wry smile. Vivian glanced at his miserable expression, went upstairs and came back down dressed to go out, with Julian's jacket draped over her arm. "Let's go. A walk by the river might clear your head." Julian didn't move. "You want your cold to get worse? Come on. The sooner you get this done, the sooner you can sleep. I can't just be snoring away upstairs while my landlord is slaving away down here. My conscience wouldn't let me. Besides, it's not the first time you've dragged me out for a midnight walk by the river." That was true. He and Vivian had first gotten to know each other because of the house. He had just arrived in Portland back then and, planning to stay long-term, had bought a house. Vivian lived across the hall. But at the time, their interactions were limited to brief greetings when they left for work. They only really exchanged contact information after her grandfather cut her off financially for not returning home, and she was kicked out by her landlord for not paying rent. That night, he couldn't sleep and had gone for a walk by the river. When he came back, he saw Vivian huddled in a corner by his door, hugging her suitcase and looking pitiful. He had taken her in for the night out of kindness. He never expected that the next morning, she would ask if he was looking for a renter. Julian had initially wanted to refuse. At the time, all he knew was that Vivian was the young heiress of the Lane Corporation back home. After his split with Stella, he had no desire to get involved with another wealthy young woman. But then, there were reports of a stalker in the neighborhood. For safety's sake, he had agreed, and she ended up staying for 3 years. During that time, Vivian had been an exemplary tenant. She acted as his housekeeper and his driver. In her words, she was repaying his kindness. Later, when she found out he liked to go to the river at night when he was stressed, she joined him. For his protection, she claimed. Tonight was no different. Seeing her insistence, Julian gave in, took the jacket, and went out with her. By the time they reached the river, the area was deserted, with only the occasional passerby. As they parked, Julian was surprised to see another car pulling away. In all these years, this is the first time I've seen anyone else here at this hour. Vivian only half heard him. She looked up and saw a car speeding toward them. Without thinking, she instinctively pulled him into an embrace. Their bodies pressed together. 2 seconds later, they both froze. What's wrong? Julian looked up at her from her arms, bewildered. Their eyes met, and Vivian's face instantly turned beet red. And nothing. Car. Julian licked his dry lips. He could hear Vivian's heart pounding like a drum. Seeing her face about to catch fire, he took a step back and headed down the steps first. Let's go. Vivian was still frozen, only belatedly touching her head and cursing herself for being so pathetic. Little did she know, in the car that had just driven off, Stella's eyes had turned red from that fleeting glimpse. Stop the car. Ben looked troubled. Ma'am, there are cameras here. We'll get a ticket for illegal parking. I said, stop the car. The veins on Stella's forehead bulged. She was consumed by a frenzied emotion. Ben did as he was told and pulled over. Before the car had even come to a complete stop, Stella had thrown open the door and jumped out. In the rearview mirror, she had seen a profile that was almost identical to her Julian's. Couldn't be a mistake. It was him. It was the man she had loved for so many years. The man who was more important to her than her own life. She ran into the cold wind, without even a coat. She watched the two figures in front of her getting closer, her heart about to leap out of her throat. Julian, Julian, Julian. Her blood was boiling. With just one step left, she couldn't hold back any longer. She reached out and grabbed the taller of the two. Her fingertips trembled with restraint. The name Julian was on the tip of her tongue. Before she could speak, the person turned around. It was a completely unfamiliar face. The person looked terrified, utterly shocked. Only after confirming Stella meant no harm did their expression turn sour. They started yelling at her in a language she didn't understand. But Stella seemed not to hear, letting her hand fall limply, the light in her eyes extinguished. It wasn't until her assistant rushed over and apologized profusely in English that the person finally gave up on calling the police and walked away. The assistant was exhausted. Ma'am, what are you doing? Stella staggered back a few steps. Her eyes caught a glimpse of a pure white car, and her hope was rekindled. Was that car here just now? The assistant was half asleep. She glanced at the car Stella was pointing at and mumbled, I guess so. She wasn't really sure, but experience told her what to say to stop her boss from having another episode. As expected, Stella's shoulders slumped again. Was it just my imagination again? Stella let out a self-mocking smile. The suppressed longing surged like a tidal wave, threatening to swallow her whole. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked around helplessly. The next moment, her eyes locked onto a camel-colored figure at the bottom of the steps. Julian. Her pupils dilated violently. This time, there was no mistake. She rushed forward without a second thought, completely oblivious to the slope at her feet. She missed her step and fell, a sharp pain flooding her entire body. The assistant turned around, her heart leaping into her throat. Mom! Julian stood under a streetlight, hands in his pockets. A gust of wind rustled his hair, and he turned, as if sensing something. But all he saw was darkness. Vivian stopped and turned with him. What's wrong? Julian had already turned back. Nothing. I just thought I heard someone call, but it must have been my imagination. Otherwise, how could he possibly hear Stella's voice here? That night, afraid he would oversleep, Julian set 6 alarms. Predictably, the unexpected still happened. When he finally crawled out of bed and saw it was 8:30, he felt like his world was ending. He took 10 minutes to get ready, grabbed his files, and was about to put on his shoes when Vivian strolled in with a bag of breakfast. He managed a quick good morning as he rushed around. "You're heading out too?" Vivian didn't even turn around. "I was just wondering if you were going to oversleep." And, as expected, you did. Julian almost cried. "I've been so busy lately." He was juggling 3 projects at once, basically working around the clock. "That's why I told you to talk to your supervisor. Even workhorses are still human." She sighed and naturally pulled her car up to the door. Just as Julian was about to walk around her, Vivian rolled down the window. "Get in." "Huh?" Julian's brain was still foggy. Vivian glanced at the time again. "You have 15 minutes. If we hurry, you might not be late." "Thank you, Mississippi Lane." Julian's body moved faster than his brain. By the time he came to his senses, the car was already far down the road. He was still clutching the bread Vivian had shoved into his hands. He even felt a sense of entitled comfort, as if this was how things were supposed to be, but he couldn't help but glance at the person beside him. Vivian didn't turn her head, but she accurately caught his movement. "What?" "Nothing." Julian looked away and took another bite of bread. After a long moment, he squeezed out another sentence. "Thank you. Thank you for 3 years of uninterrupted care." Vivian didn't say anything. She got him to the hotel right on time. Just as she was about to ask when he would be done, she turned and saw Julian had already dashed upstairs, leaving behind a page from one of his folders on the passenger seat. Vivian couldn't help but roll her eyes. After parking the car, she walked into the lobby with the contract page and decisively called Julian's boss. "Reduce Julian's workload. And don't you dare give him this many assignments again." Poor Julian's supervisor, clutching a rejected project, hadn't even had time for a smoke break before getting chewed out by the boss's daughter. Meanwhile, Julian rushed into the elevator. Once he was sure he wouldn't be late, he let out a sigh of relief, composed himself, and put on his best professional face. As the elevator doors slowly opened, a standard professional smile was already on his lips. It stayed there all the way to the hotel room door. After knocking 3 times with no response, he frowned and checked the room number on his phone again. Just as he was about to knock a 4th time, a woman's puzzled voice came from behind him. "Mr. Davis?" The woman's voice was still a little hoarse from sleep, but the smile on Julian's face suddenly froze. When he didn't respond, the person's tone became sharper. "Hello?" Another call. Julian's hand, holding the contract, was now clenched into a fist. He heard footsteps approaching. Julian took a deep breath, unclenched his fist, and plastered on a professional smile before turning around. "Ms. Vance, hello. I'm your translator for this engagement. I'm Andy." This time, it was Stella's turn to freeze. The early spring light streamed in through the window. The winters in Portland were never too cold, and by spring, the temperature was usually in the 50s. But in that moment, the hotel corridor felt impossibly cold. Seeing him again after 3 years, his face was exactly as she remembered. The only difference was the fierce, surging emotion in her eyes and the few fresh scrapes on her face. "Julian." Stella's eyes were bloodshot, her breathing heavy. In that moment, she saw nothing and no one else. But the smile on Julian's face didn't waver. He looked at her coolly, as if she were a complete stranger. "Ms. Vance, the contract has been drafted. You can take a look." He was all business, but Stella couldn't hear a word he said. She rushed forward and grabbed his hand, afraid that if she let go, he would disappear. "Julian, do you know how long I've been looking for you? For 3 years. I've been searching for you every single day." "Excuse me, Ms. Vance. I'm here on business today." He took a step back, trying to pull his arm away, but Stella stubbornly refused to let go. "We can talk. My money is all yours. If you want, I'll sign this contract right now. Julian, just give me a chance. Don't look at me like that. Don't treat me like a stranger. Please? I can't take it. I'll go crazy. I'm begging you, just give me a chance. Let's just talk." Stella, at 5'9", now stood before Julian like a child who had done something wrong. Her eyes filled with tears, her head hung low. "I'm begging you, Julian." Her voice was completely hoarse, her words tumbling out in a jumble. Her grip on his hand was so tight it felt like she was trying to crush his bones. Ms. Vance, I'll say it again. I am here on business. And please let go of my hand. Julian fought back his nausea, trying his best to maintain a pleasant expression. But Stella seemed not to understand, her grip only tightening. I won't let go, Julian. I will never let go of your hand again. These 3 years without you have been a living hell. Julian, let's just talk. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I'm begging you. Forgive me this one time. She was practically groveling. Julian just felt disgusted. Ms. Vance. Honey, don't call me that. We're husband and wife. She said it as if it were a matter of fact, as if she had completely forgotten the divorce papers she had personally signed. Julian's patience was wearing thin. He took a deep breath, then another. Just as he was about to snap, the elevator doors down the hall opened. A figure stepped out. Almost instinctively, Julian smiled and called out to the person behind Stella. Honey, over here. His expression changed so quickly that Stella, seeing that long-lost smile, was momentarily stunned. Vivian had already understood. She swiftly walked to Julian's side, naturally linking her arm with his, and looked at Stella's tight grip on Julian's arm with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. How much longer do you plan on holding on to him, miss? It was obvious that Julian's honey and his smile were not for Stella. The realization took root in her heart, quickly growing into a forest of thorns that squeezed her tight. Seeing the two of them so close and natural, she felt a wave of suffocation. Honey, who is she? Julian smiled and took Vivian's hand, his expression changing from its earlier aloofness to one of pure happiness. Let me introduce you. This is my wife, Vivian Lane.
Impossible.
A metallic taste rose in her throat. Stella lunged forward, trying to pull Julian into her arms. Honey, don't joke with me like this. I'm your husband. Your wife is me. She repeated the word honey in desperation. Julian's last shred of patience snapped. If your memory is failing you, Ms. Vance, I can let you see that divorce agreement you signed one more time. I don't believe you. Vivian had imagined many possibilities. She could accept Julian hating her, resenting her, even hitting her. But she could not accept him not loving her. That was far more painful than death. Honey, stop playing around. I know you're still mad at me, but I really know I was wrong. I've already dealt with William. I'll never do something like that again. If you still don't feel secure, we can go see a lawyer when we get back. I'll transfer all my assets to you. Honey, let's just go home. Please. She forced a smile that was uglier than crying and tried to take Julian's hand. Vivian stepped in front of her at the perfect moment, looking down at her with cold eyes. Ms. Vance, am I invisible to you? Calling another woman's husband honey over and over. Is this how the Vance family raises their children? Who do you think you are? I'm talking to my husband. What right do you have to butt in? Stella was trembling all over. Honey, let's go home. She looked cautiously at Julian, who was behind Vivian. The next moment, she was met with a pair of utterly indifferent eyes. I'll say it one more time. I am not your husband, Ms. Vance. Don't call me that. We are divorced. As for Vivian, he held up their intertwined hands and smiled cruelly. She is my wife. If she doesn't have the right, then you, Ms. Vance, have even less of a right. As for the contract, I don't think we'll have a very productive conversation going forward. To avoid wasting any more of your time, I'll request a replacement when I get back. Goodbye. He said it all in a businesslike tone. Then, without another glance at Stella, he turned and walked away with Vivian. Stella tried to chase after them, but a sharp pain shot through her head. She fought through it, took a few steps, and then lost control of her body, collapsing heavily onto the floor. In the last second before she lost consciousness, she saw Julian turn at the sound. But he only turned his head. Even after seeing her on the ground, he just looked, then coolly turned away again. That woman, who once filled the eyes that now held no love for her, was no longer in his sight. Inside the elevator, Julian held Vivian's hand and didn't let go. All the way, Vivian could feel his grip tightening. He walked faster and faster, almost running out into the street before Vivian managed to pull him back. This way. Julian mumbled an okay, his emotions clearly in turmoil. He didn't speak, and Vivian didn't ask. It wasn't until they reached the car and Vivian tried to get in that Julian, still holding her hand, didn't seem to notice. When he felt her stop, he asked in a muffled voice, "What's wrong?" Vivian shook her head, her voice gentle. "Nothing. I'll just stand here with you for a bit." Julian wasn't the type to want to be alone when something was wrong. Vivian had figured that out a long time ago. Julian's voice was a little nasal. "I want to go home." With that, Julian started to walk toward the passenger side, only then realizing he was still holding her hand. "Sorry." He frowned and let go. Vivian still smiled gently. "It's fine." She opened the car door for Julian, watched him get in, and then got into the driver's seat. The entire ride, Julian was unusually quiet. It wasn't until they got home and were about to get out of the car that Julian, out of the blue, said he was sorry. Vivian didn't have time to react. Julian then explained, "I used you just now without asking. What's the big deal?" Vivian was as nonchalant as ever. "You can use me as many times as you want in the future." She never once asked about Stella's identity. Julian didn't say anything more. Once they were inside, he threw himself back into his work. Other than a quick message to his supervisor about finding a replacement, he seemed to have snapped back into his old self, the workaholic who forgot to eat or sleep. But Vivian knew he was unhappy. Very unhappy. His palms were red from clenching his fists all day. But she didn't ask a thing. She just went out before lunch and bought a small, exquisite cake and a huge pile of candy. When Julian came out of his room after a shower, he was greeted by a mountain of candy and a card perched on top with no name. "When in a bad mood, eat sweets." Your words. Julian carefully carried all the candy back to his room, one piece at a time. He locked himself in his room for the entire afternoon. It wasn't until dusk. He suddenly threw open his door and ran right into Vivian, who had been hesitating outside for a while. I was just wondering if you wanted to." "Vivian, let's go for a run." "Huh?" The change in Julian was too abrupt. Before Vivian's brain could catch up, he was already downstairs. "A run? You in?" "Wait, hold on." Vivian scrambled after him. She dazedly followed him for a lap around the river. By the time they stopped, her face was pale. Julian collapsed onto the grass as well. After a good sweat, his mood seemed to have lifted considerably. "Thanks." He looked at the woman beside him. Vivian wanted to say it was nothing, but all that came out was a cough. After a moment, she made a pitiful request. "You don't have to thank me, but next time, could you maybe not be so sudden?" Then she thought better of it and shook her head. "Never mind, running is fine. As long as you're happy, I'll just work out more so I'm not so out of breath next time." She said it so seriously that Julian couldn't help but laugh. On the way back, Julian's mood had clearly improved. He even, for the first time, told Vivian the secret that had been weighing on him for 3 years. Unexpectedly, he felt a huge sense of relief after telling her. Vivian's face, however, darkened. "Scumbag," she muttered under her breath. When she looked up, she saw the very scumbag she had just cursed standing not far away. Speak of the devil. Stella had been standing there for who knows how long. When she saw Julian, she forced a smile and was about to step forward, but she faltered when she saw Vivian standing next to him. They looked at each other for a long time. Her smile was uglier than a grimace. "Julian, can we talk?" Vivian's face was grim. "Are you deaf? My husband has nothing to talk to you about." But Stella acted as if she hadn't heard. She stared stubbornly at Julian, waiting for his answer. Julian was silent for a long time. When the wind picked up, he managed a smile. "My wife said we have nothing to talk about. Ms. Vance, we are divorced. I hope you will stop harassing me in the future. Otherwise, I will call the police." He said it with all seriousness. The forced smile on Stella's face twitched, and her eyes grew redder. "Julian, I really know I was wrong. These 3 years without you, I've been living in agony every single moment. My heart is really about to give out. Julian, it hurts. It really hurts. She pointed to her heart, her voice choked with emotion. Julian finally gave her a second look. It hurts? How much? It's like being sliced to death, Julian. It's a despair so painful it feels like I'm about to die. Her fingers trembled as she tried to reach for him, but Julian dodged with a smile. It hurts? Good. A traitor shouldn't get off so easily, right? How could he be the only one in pain? Stella was caught off guard. She stared at Julian in disbelief. Julian, let's not be like this. Okay? You never used to talk to me like this. You haven't been home in so long. Don't treat me like this. Let's not torture each other anymore. Okay? Julian almost laughed. He didn't know what gave her that impression. I thought I made myself clear. Ms. Vance, we ended things 3 years ago. You've been written out of my life script. Do you understand? Instead of pestering me here, you should go home and comfort your precious William. Your child should be talking by now, right? I guess that makes me his uncle, but I probably won't ever get to meet him, so no need for a gift. Huh? He said it casually, but his cold eyes held no warmth. Stella seemed to have completely panicked. There's no child, Julian. In these 3 years, I haven't had any contact with him. She desperately tried to grab Julian. Vivian had already slipped into character, coolly blocking her and pulling Julian away without a backward glance. After that night, Julian had completely moved on from his emotional turmoil, but Stella seemed to be possessed. She started waiting downstairs at Julian's house every day. Julian ignored her completely, blocked all her contact methods, so she started sending him flowers and food. She seemed to be frantically trying to show Julian that even after 3 years, she had never forgotten his preferences. But it was pointless. From the moment she betrayed him and slept with his own brother, their future was destined for ruin. Julian stared coldly at the overflowing trash can outside, filled with fresh flowers piled on top of withered ones, day after day. Until one day, Julian couldn't take it anymore and turned back. If you're really that bored, go show some concern for William. He's been hopelessly devoted to you for 3 years. He's even on the internet, begging you to come back. He had found out about this a few days ago when he logged into an old social media account. An account he hadn't used in 3 years was flooded with over 99 notifications. The top few were all from a user named Waiting for Stella, tagging him in videos. He had clicked on one out of curiosity. He saw thousands of posts, almost all with the same caption. Will I see Stella today? He had kept it up for 3 whole years. Such devotion. Julian genuinely suggested Stella go back to William. A cheater and a scumbag deserved each other. It would also save him the trouble. But Stella clearly misunderstood. The day after she left his apartment, Julian received a text from an unknown number. Julian, I'll bring him to you to explain. I'll show you with my actions that there's nothing between us. On the same day, he received a call from an unknown number. Following his rule of not answering unknown numbers unless they called 3 times in a row, Julian hesitantly answered on the 4th call. A familiar roar came from the other end. Julian, how can you be so vicious? I'm your own brother. How could you do this to me? I just fell in love with someone. What did I do wrong? William's call was completely nonsensical. Julian was bewildered, but from his ranting, he finally pieced together the meaning. Stella had found him, brought him to Portland, and wanted him to tell Julian in person that nothing had happened between them for the past 3 years. What a stupid plan. Julian couldn't be bothered to listen to his abuse. He hung up and blocked the number. Tired of dealing with Stella, he stayed at the office all day and didn't go home. Surprisingly, he didn't receive a single unwanted call or text all evening. It stayed that way for many days. Stella was so quiet, it was as if she had completely vanished from his world. But Julian was happy with her absence. His life gradually returned to its former rhythm. He and Vivian would go for walks by the river. One day, Vivian's grandfather tracked them down in Portland. Fearing he would be tied up and thrown into some handsome stranger's bed, Julian graciously played the role of her boyfriend. At first, her grandfather didn't believe it. But after confirming they had lived together for 3 years and seeing their natural, easy chemistry, he was ecstatic. This went on for about a month. so long that Julian had almost forgotten Stella had ever briefly reappeared in his life. Then Stella's assistant found him. At first, she couldn't break the habit and called him Mr. Vance. After Julian corrected her for the third time, she let out a bitter laugh, as if accepting her fate. Mr. Davis, our president, had an accident a while ago. She's preparing to return to the country. Before she leaves, she wanted to leave something for you as compensation. She spoke vaguely. It was only then that Julian learned that on the day Stella brought William to see him, she had fallen from a building. He heard it was during an argument with William, an accidental fall from the third floor. The assistant didn't say how badly she was hurt, only that William had hit his head when he fell and was now in a vegetative state. Julian thought that for her to be so repentant, she must be on her deathbed. But when he saw her at the hospital, he thought she probably wasn't that badly injured after all. Otherwise, where would she get the strength to stare at him for so long? Julian had taken time off work to be there. Vivian was waiting downstairs, so he wanted to make it quick. Your assistant said you wanted to compensate me. So how are you planning on doing that? Money? A house? A car? In his 3 years abroad, Julian had become much more practical. Only a fool would turn down free money, especially a voluntary gift from an ex-wife. No one ever complains about having too much money. Perhaps because Julian's reaction was so calm, Stella couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. You're taking this well. What did you expect? For me to be miserable and crying every day? Julian said bluntly, you were the one who betrayed me. The one in pain shouldn't be me. You're right. I guess this is all karma, Stella said bitterly, looking out the window. It had only been a month, but she looked like she had aged 10 years. But that wasn't Julian's concern. So what are you giving me? Can you hurry up? I need to go. He really was in a hurry. Vivian had just texted him that her grandfather was doing a surprise inspection. He had to go back with her. Julian held out his hand to Stella without any hesitation. Stella's eyes welled up with an emotion she was about to lose control of. Can't you just stay a little longer? No. Julian's patience was running out. I have to go back with Vivian to see her grandfather. Do you really want to make an old man wait? Moral blackmail. Anyone could play that game. As the seconds ticked by, Stella seemed to be crushed by his words. She closed her eyes in pain, and a tear slipped out, disappearing into her pillow. Her fingers trembled. In the end, she didn't get up, just pointed to the bedside table. When we divorced, you didn't take anything. I had a lawyer go over my assets. This is my compensation. Her throat tightened, as if she was enduring some immense pain. After a long moment, she managed another sentence. You can go. Julian picked up the contract but didn't move. He frowned at the bedsheets. Did you spill water? Stella flinched, her beautiful face contorted with humiliation and shame. She covered her eyes and called for the assistant outside. Julian didn't move. Stella's tears finally broke free, streaming through her fingers. Julian, stop looking at me. Just go. I'm begging you, just go. And don't ever come back. Julian walked to the door in a daze. A few nurses passed by, shaking their heads. Such a beautiful face to end up a quadriplegic. Julian froze, then heard a cold laugh. What good is being beautiful? I saw her on the news. She cheated on her husband with her own brother-in-law. People like that deserve to fall and die. After learning this, Julian didn't know how to feel. Because he didn't love her anymore, there wasn't much hatred left either. Stella was now no different from a stranger to him. When he left the hospital, Vivian was still waiting downstairs. They were the same as always. He didn't talk, so she didn't ask. But after meeting Vivian's grandfather that afternoon, she was a bit on edge. On the way back, she was conflicted. When they got home, she finally blurted out, maybe we should just tell my grandpa the truth. He's already started pushing for marriage. I'm really afraid he's going to spike our drinks one of these days. She mumbled the last part, her face turning an embarrassing shade of red. But Julian seriously considered it. Actually, that might not be such a bad idea, right? I don't think we can wait. What's not a bad idea? Vivian was stunned. I said, giving it a try with you might not be such a bad idea. Julian never lacked the courage to start over, and he would never let one fall in love stop him from loving again. In his 3 years with Vivian, he wasn't blind to her kindness. So he wanted to give himself a chance and give Vivian a chance too. Besides, a second marriage for him and a first for her? By any calculation, he was getting the better end of the deal. That night, Vivian was so happy she almost fell out of the car. After steadying herself, she grabbed Julian and rushed inside. Just as the door was closing, Julian laid down his one unbreakable rule. If you ever dare to betray me, I will walk away without looking back. Vivian didn't even hesitate. Don't worry, my family has a strong moral compass. We've been a line of romantics since my great-grandfather's time. If I ever dared to wrong you, you wouldn't even have to lift a finger. My grandpa would take care of me himself. As for what came next, who knew? They hadn't gotten there yet. But one thing was for sure. Julian's life would only get better. Couldn't possibly get any worse.